Hey, sixth graders, it's Mrs. Johnson. I'm going to be explaining your rockets activity. So this is meant to last about a week. So just do kind of a little bit each day. If you are interested in actually creating and launching rockets, the very last slide of this slideshow will have some different types of rockets you could build at home on your own and try to launch them yourself. That part is optional, but it's on there if it is something you're interested in, okay? So the first thing you're going to do is you are going to be doing a little bit of research about how we launch things in space. So you're going to watch this video, then you're going to read through this article, and you're going to be looking at some of the forces that are needed to launch rockets. And then after reading through the article and watching the video, you'll summarize how rockets are launched into space. So right in this blue box here, you're going to type about 3 to 5 sentences, just some things that you learned about how rockets are launched. The next part is going to be a simulation activity. So how high will your model rocket fly? And so you're going to use an online rocket launcher to do this. So if you click on this image, it will bring you to the interactive. It looks like this. Maybe when it loads. All right, so the first thing you're going to do is click on play right here just to watch through the kind of the introduction to it. All right, and that is on the next slide. So you'll go through these slides here. So the first slide says click on the play button to watch the introduction video, then click on the arrow on the right-hand side to go to the sim. So to do that, you will click on, this little arrow over here, and that will bring you into the activity. All right. Then as you go through here, it says review these controls on the rocket simulation. So there's 3 sliders that you're going to be using. The first one controls the rocket mass. And so if you slide it up, it increases the mass of the rocket. And if you slide it down, it decreases it. We have rocket burn time. And this slider adjusts the amount of time the rocket burns for before it shuts off. Longer burn times will lead to greater speeds as the acceleration of the rocket continues as long as the rocket burns. So you can move it up and down. And then we have rocket thrust here. And this slider adjusts the amount of thrust applied by the rocket while it is burning. We're making the assumption that the thrust is constant in value over burn time and then immediately drops to 0. The amount by which the thrust exceeds the weight of the rocket determines the acceleration of the rocket. So you can slide the thrust up and you can slide it down. All right. And you can see those in the sim. Okay, right here is the mass, the burn time, and the thrust. The other thing you'll see on here is there are 2 graphs. One is labeled velocity. We're going to ignore that graph. And the other one is labeled altitude and time. So altitude is like height above ground, so how high it goes. And then time is for how long the rocket is up in the air. So from the slideshow, the next one talks about the altitude and time graph. It says we will not be looking at the other graph because what we're trying to find out is how to make our rocket fly the highest. All right. So the first task is we're going to play around with the mass slider a little bit. It says leave the rocket burn time slider at 1.4 seconds and the thrust at 8. So we will leave the thrust and the burn time, and then you're going to play around with the mass, moving it up and down. Okay. Then it says answer the questions on the next slide. So what you'll do is you'll play around with it. So maybe make it higher, and then you click play and it will launch the rocket. And what you're doing is looking at this graph over here to see how high that rocket goes. Then maybe you'll bring it all the way down and try it again somewhere in the middle. And what you're looking for is you're looking to see, well, which one of those affects the height the most? Then you'll answer the 3 questions. What was the highest your rocket went? What was the mass of that rocket? You type it right in this box. You're going to put a screenshot of the graph at its highest height. And then what is the relationship between the mass of the rocket and how high it flies? Then the next slide tells you to play around with the burn time. So you'll do the same thing. You'll put the rocket mass slider at 0.3 kilograms and the thrust at 8. Okay, so we'll put this back to 0.3, thrust at 8, and then we'll play around with this and do it a few times and see what happens. Okay. and then answer the questions. And then do the same thing with changing the thrust and answer the questions. All right. When you're finished with all that, you'll write another summary. What factor or factors most influence the height of the rocket? Answer in the blue box. Use evidence to support your answer. So you're going to use some of the evidence that you found when you were doing the experiment, and type that in the box there. Then the last slide will have some kind of extra activities. You don't have to do those if you don't want to, but they are there for you if you are interested in it. And then once you're finished, just submit this on the assignment on Schoology. All right. Let me know if you have any questions, and have a great day.